Let me tell you about the night I wandered into a quiet place. It was the kind of night that whispered instead of spoke, where the sky turned the color of faded lavender, and the last traces of daylight curled into the horizon like the tail of a gentle breeze. I didn't go looking for anything, not really. I was just walking, slowly, without thought or destination, just following the hush of the evening, letting it carry me like a feather on still water. There was a hush in the air that I hadn't felt in a long time, a stillness so complete it felt sacred. The wind had softened to a hush, and the trees nearby seemed to lean in closer, as if listening to my footsteps on the path. I stepped lightly, the soles of my shoes pressing into the damp earth with a soft sound, more felt than heard. Each step seemed to echo inward more than outward, as though the world around me had settled into silence, waiting. The sky above me deepened into a soft velvet blue, stars just beginning to appear, shy and silver, peeking through the veil of twilight. A quiet moon hung low, its glow spilling across the ground like milk poured slowly across stone. Its light didn't shine so much as it caressed, touching the leaves and grass with a patient, silken hand. Shadows stretched gently, never harsh or sudden, and I followed them with my eyes as I walked, watching how the night unfolded itself like a slow exhale. I came to a wide meadow, nestled beside a grove of quiet trees. It looked like it had been waiting there forever, untouched, unhurried. The grass was long and soft, bent under the weight of moonlight and night dew, and the wildflowers, pale blues, whites, and sleepy purples, seemed to hum with stillness. They swayed just slightly, as if dreaming of some forgotten breeze. I stood there for a while, not moving, not thinking, only breathing. The cool air wrapped around me like a shawl, not cold but comforting, like the brush of a hand across the forehead. It smelled of earth and green things, of fallen leaves and moss, of a day that had ended peacefully. Somewhere far off, an owl called once, low and rounded, like a stone dropping into a deep well. In the distance, I could hear the soft trickle of water, perhaps a small stream or a sleeping brook, its voice folded into the landscape, barely there, but somehow known. My feet found the path again, if it could be called that. It was more of a suggestion than a trail, just a slightly worn way through the tall grass, as if others like me had once wandered through. Gently, quietly, I walked without hurry. There was no reason to rush. My steps grew slower, softer, and the night welcomed me as though I belonged. I could feel the soil beneath me, warm from the memory of the day, and loose enough to give just a little underfoot. Every step was like sinking gently into the world, not sinking down, but settling in. Each breath I took felt deeper than the last, as if the air itself was meant to calm and cradle. As I moved along the edge of the grove, the trees stood like old friends, silent, tall, and patient. Their leaves barely stirred, and yet I could hear them. A faint rustling, like a lullaby, hummed under the breath. They cast soft, lacy shadows across the path, dappling the ground with light and dark that swayed slowly in rhythm with my steps. It was a night that seemed outside of time, the kind of night where everything stills, not just the world, but the thoughts inside you too. Worries melted somewhere between the hush of the wind and the touch of moonlight. My heartbeat slowed, not because I was tired, but because the world around me was teaching me how. I had the sense that I wasn't walking toward anything in particular. It wasn't a journey to a place, but a drifting deeper into quiet, into softness, into something that felt like rest. The farther I walked, the less there was to hold on to, not in a way that made me feel lost, but in the way a leaf feels when it finally lets go of the branch, floating gently down because the wind promised to carry it. That's what the night was like, a promise that I would be held. Somewhere behind me, the world I knew faded gently into memory, and ahead of me, the meadow, the moonlight, the hush. It opened up with a kind of quiet welcome, not asking anything of me, only offering space. And so I wandered deeper, each step a little slower, each breath a little softer, and the night wrapped around me like a sigh. The grass rose around me in waves, tall and unhurried, their tips catching the moonlight like threads of silk. I moved slowly through them, not pushing them aside, but letting them part for me in their own time, brushing softly against my arms, my hands, the fabric of my clothes. They leaned in close, whispering secrets in a language older than speech, secrets made only of rustle and hush, of rhythm and breeze. The air was tender here, touched with the scent of deep earth and growing things. It smelled like cool soil still holding the warmth of the day, like the roots of wildflowers and the faint sweetness of grass gone to seed. Every breath I drew in felt like a gentle lullaby, a reminder that I didn't need to do anything but be here. Just walk, just breathe, just listen. The breeze moved through the field like a careful hand smoothing a sheet, folding the grasses one way, then another. It wasn't strong, only constant, soft and slow, like someone breathing in their sleep. It brushed the back of my neck and stirred the hem of my shirt, carried with it the scent of something distant and sweet, something familiar but unnamed, a forgotten memory perhaps, or the ghost of a feeling from childhood. I didn't chase it, I just let it pass through me. The grass swayed gently against my legs, 1,000 soft touches, each one reminding me I was here and nothing else was needed. My body, often full of held breath and invisible tension, had begun to loosen. My shoulders no longer sat high and guarded. They drooped slightly, comfortably. My hands no longer curled with thought or purpose. They hung loosely at my sides, brushing the grass as I moved. Every step felt slower than the one before, not from tiredness, but from calm. The earth here was forgiving and soft, giving just enough to make each footfall silent and sure. I could feel the subtle give beneath my heels, as if the land itself welcomed my weight and offered no resistance, only support. The coolness of the ground reached up through the soles of my feet, not cold but quiet, grounding. There was no path now, only the wide field, gently lit by the moon and cradled by the quiet grove. I let my steps be guided by nothing in particular, just the shape of the land, the draw of the wind, the way the grasses leaned as if pointing me forward. In this open space, the world no longer asked questions, it simply allowed. Somewhere high above, a few stars blinked slowly into view, not all at once, just one, then another, like lanterns lit one by one in a long, winding corridor. Their light was soft, distant, and somehow comforting. I looked up for a moment and felt small in a way that didn't frighten me. Small, like a stone, at the bottom of a clear stream. Known, held. The day had slipped away entirely now. Whatever thoughts I'd brought with me were thinning, dissolving like mist in morning sun. The pull of everything I'd been trying to hold on to, the decisions, the plans, the remembering, and the reaching, was loosening. I no longer needed to keep my grip. The grass didn't ask me to remember. The moon didn't ask me to be anything. The wind asked only that I listen. And so I let go, bit by bit, thought by thought. I watched them drift like petals down a stream, quiet, unhurried, inevitable. My breathing followed, slower now, smoother. No longer trying to match the rhythm of the world I'd left behind, but easing into the quiet tempo of this moment, this field, this hush. There was a hush, too, inside me, one that hadn't been there before. Not silence exactly, but stillness, a pause between the beats, a breath between the thoughts. And in that pause, I found something I hadn't known I was looking for. Peace without needing a reason. The grass rustled again, a long, low sigh that rolled across the field like a whispering tide. I stood still to listen. There was something sacred in the sound, not sacred in the way of temples and grand words, but in the way that stillness feels when it's real. When it wraps itself around you, not because you asked, but because you stopped long enough to let it. I closed my eyes for a moment and simply stood, letting the wind thread through my hair, letting the night hold me up, letting myself be just this, a person among the whispering grass. And all around me, the earth breathed slowly, and all within me, the breath began to match. I hadn't been looking for anything, only moving forward through the gentle hush, letting the night unfold around me. But as the tall grass gradually gave way, I stepped into a small, open clearing, as though the earth itself had paused to take a breath. It was a circle, quiet, perfect, and softly lit. And I knew at once that I had arrived somewhere meant only for this moment. Around the edges, wildflowers stood like silent sentinels, their faces turned toward the moon, their stems barely moving in the breeze. Not planted, not arranged, just growing there as if they'd always known they belonged. Their colors were muted in the silver light, creamy whites, sleepy lavenders, pale blues like water reflecting sky. Nothing was bright, nothing loud, just quiet blooms opening toward the stars. I moved slowly, carefully, as though my presence might disturb the hush that lived here. My feet sank gently into the mossy earth beneath me. There was no path, no footprints, only the soft embrace of ground that had waited patiently. Each step felt like slipping deeper into calm, deeper into a kind of dreaming that didn't need to end. I walked along the edge of the circle, tracing it with my eyes, with my breath. Petals glistened with tiny beads of dew, catching the moonlight like polished glass. They shimmered faintly, not in show, but in the way of things that have nothing to prove. I knelt near one of the blossoms and watched a drop of water slide from its tip, slow and sure, vanishing silently into the dark soil. There was something sacred in that stillness, something complete. The flowers leaned toward one another as if speaking in soft glances. Some bowed their heads, others opened wide, unafraid of the dark. Each one held a different shape, a different rhythm, some with long, elegant stems, others short and gathered low to the ground. None were the same, yet all belonged. I let my fingers trail across one of the petals, cool, soft as breath, smooth as cloud. In the center of the clearing, the grass was shorter, pressed gently flat by time or breeze, or maybe by others who had once found their way here too. I stood still in that center space, turning slowly to take in the circle around me. The flowers did not close under my gaze. They simply waited, breathing in silence, holding their place. There was no noise here, only the sounds that belonged. The quiet ticking of crickets in the distance, the whisper of leaves beyond the clearing, the faint hum of the earth as it turned beneath me. Everything else had been left behind. The day, with all its demands and names, felt far away now, like something I had shed without realizing it. What remained was simpler: the rhythm of breath, the softness of petals, the way light and shadow moved across the ground without asking anything at all. I lowered myself into the center of the ring, letting the earth take my weight. The grass cradled me gently. Around me, the wildflowers swayed, not in time with the wind, but in time with each other, as if guided by some deeper pulse. I watched them move, and I felt that pulse in myself, too, in the slow, steady rise and fall of my chest, in the warmth that settled behind my eyes, in the quiet that had begun to root itself deep inside. So much of life rushes forward. So much of it calls for attention, for movement, for doing. But not here, not now. Here, I was allowed to stop, to be part of something that asked nothing and gave everything. I thought about how many ordinary things hold beauty when we finally stop to see them. A single petal, trembling slightly in the breeze. The curve of a blade of grass. The way moonlight touches the surface of still water. How much goes unnoticed when we move too fast, and yet all of it remains, waiting, quietly offering wonder. I let my eyes close for a moment and breathed in the scent of the clearing. It was green and sweet, cool and earthy. The fragrance of flowers not picked, but lived with. Of soil not trampled, but trusted. The scent filled me slowly, like a lullaby made of air. It anchored me deeper into the ground, into the moment, into myself. And when I opened my eyes again, the circle of wildflowers was still there, just as before. But something inside me had changed. I was no longer moving through the clearing. I had become part of it. Another quiet thing in the ring of gentle color. Another shape held in the hush of night. I let the thought settle like a feather falling, and everything was still, and everything was soft, and everything was enough. I found myself drawn to the edge of the clearing, where the wildflowers gave way to a quiet stand of trees. One, taller than the rest, stood with its wide branches outstretched, its trunk steady and worn smooth by wind and rain and time. I walked to it slowly, letting my fingers brush the textured bark as I lowered myself to the ground, leaning my back against the solid weight of its body. The earth beneath me was cool and softly uneven, scattered with old leaves and curled twigs, and the tree welcomed me without a word. Above, its branches reached toward the stars in long, thoughtful lines, and in those branches the leaves began to speak. It started quietly, a rustle just barely there, like the first page of a book turning in a gentle hand. Then a pause, and then another breath of wind, another soft stirring. The leaves moved like whispers across the canopy, dry and delicate, like silk brushing silk. Each sound distinct, yet part of a larger rhythm, a language shaped by wind and space and patience. I closed my eyes and listened. There was no need to interpret, no need to understand, The sound was enough. It spoke of things that words rarely carry, of rain long past and sunlit mornings forgotten, of the hush between seasons and the secret stillness that lives between each gust. The tree, old and rooted, seemed to hum with memory, and the leaves above me carried that hum into the air. Time slowed in the presence of that rustling. It didn't stop, but it softened, stretching like shadows at dusk. I felt myself drifting between thoughts, between breaths, between the now and whatever came before. The tree, the wind, the leaves, they all held something older than I could name. A calmness shaped by waiting, a wisdom without hurry. I imagined the years layered beneath me, folded into the soil, resting just below the surface. Fallen leaves from seasons long past, broken down and returned to earth, feeding roots that drank the sky. How many nights like this had passed unnoticed? How many hushes like this one had wrapped themselves around the world while no one was watching? A wind picked up slightly, just enough to deepen the chorus above me. The leaves clattered softly, like chimes without metal, like breath moving through a forest of tiny wings. There was a rhythm in it, one that rose and fell, not with urgency, but with grace. I found my breath settling into it, sinking gently, as if my body remembered this music from some quiet dream. I let my thoughts drift in the rustle, each one a leaf itself, carried, lifted, turned, and let go. There was no need to hold on to anything. The tree did not ask me to explain myself. With my back resting against the trunk, I could feel the subtle strength of the tree behind me, its quiet endurance, the way it held its space without noise or motion. I thought about time, not the time measured in hours or days, but the deeper kind, the slow time of roots, of rings hidden in wood, of seasons moving through without needing to be marked. In that time, nothing is ever really lost. It is only changed, returned, absorbed. The laughter of a child running through the grass decades ago, the echo of a long-forgotten bird call, the sigh of someone else who once sat beneath this same tree and listened just as I was doing now. All of it was still here, held gently by the leaves, swaying softly in their rustling breath. I opened my eyes and looked upward, watching the leaves shimmer against the sky. The moonlight caught their edges, and for a moment they looked like silver threads, weaving a tapestry of sound and silence. Each flicker, each tremble, part of a lullaby only the night could sing. Nothing asked for attention here, and yet everything deserved it. A single curled leaf resting near my hand, the way the wind moved around the tree like a slow tide, the coolness of the air against my face, the way my breath slowed without effort, drawn into the rhythm of the world around me. This moment didn't need to last forever. It didn't even need to last long. It was whole just as it was, complete in its quietness, generous in its stillness. I didn't need to name it or capture it. I only needed to be in it, and so I stayed there, listening to the rustling leaves, to the hush between sounds, to the gentle language of the wind. And somewhere within that rhythm, I felt myself begin to settle even deeper. Not asleep, not quite, but close, cradled in the arms of the earth, held by the breath of the trees, and carried gently by the sound of the leaves, whispering the night into my bones. I tilted my head back slowly, letting my gaze drift upward, past the curve of the trunk, past the swaying leaves that whispered overhead, until my eyes found the sky, quiet and endless between the branches. It was a dark so deep, it felt like it could swallow every thought, every noise, every yesterday. A soft dark, not empty, but full of breath, of quiet life, of slow turning stars. The branches above me reached out like long fingers, each one holding pieces of the sky between them, as though the tree itself had gathered fragments of the universe just for me. Through the delicate gaps in the canopy, I could see the stars, scattered in gentle patterns, not glittering or sharp, but soft, faint pulses of light blinking slowly, as if they too were breathing. I watched them without expectation, letting my focus drift from one faint shimmer to another. There was no hurry in them, no message to decode. They were simply there, distant, constant, slow in their turning. The sky moved in its own rhythm, a pace so vast, so forgiving. It made the world beneath it seem weightless. I took a breath, long and deep, and let it out slowly. The air slipped into my lungs like a tide, cool and quiet, and when I exhaled, I imagined my breath joining the wind above, rising through the branches, past the leaves, into the sky. I breathed again, and with each breath, I let something go. A thought, a worry, a plan. I let them drift upward like smoke, dissolving into the stars, forgotten. Above me, the heavens turned, not in any way I could see or measure, but I could feel it. A slow rotation, like a great wheel turning behind velvet. The stars shifted, almost imperceptibly, in their ancient spiral, and watching them made me feel as though I too was part of something vast and unhurried, something that didn't need my control, something that welcomed my rest. The tree cradled my back, the ground held my weight, and the sky offered no questions. Only distance, only quiet, only time. It's strange how much room there is in stillness. At first it feels like emptiness, a lack, a silence. But then you notice the space, the softness, the way the breath flows easier when you stop chasing the next moment. And in that space, the sky unfolded above me, calm and steady, ancient and near. Some stars shimmered in pairs, some stood alone, some barely flickered at all, hiding behind the faintest clouds or the curling shadow of a branch. But together they formed a kind of lullaby, one made of light instead of sound, a gentle map with no destination, only a quiet reminder that everything moves slowly and everything returns. I watched one faint star blink out behind a moving leaf, only to reappear a moment later, shifted slightly in the sky. That simple motion felt profound. The sky turned, and I didn't need to keep up. I didn't need to follow. I only needed to notice. And even that, only if I wished. Another breath, and another, each one softer than the last. I let my eyes unfocus slightly, no longer tracking the stars, but letting them become a shimmered blur, a field of softness, like distant lanterns on far-off hills. Their light reached me slowly, with no urgency, no demand, just quiet persistence. And in that light, I felt something inside me begin to still, the kind of stillness that happens not from trying, but from allowing. The kind that doesn't announce itself, but settles quietly around your shoulders, your chest, your thoughts. The leaves above moved gently in the breeze, framing the sky in ever-changing silhouettes. And through those shapes, the stars continued their quiet work, shining, waiting, moving through time. I let myself drift with them. Not up, not away, but deeper into the moment. Into the breath, into the slow rhythm of sky and wind and sleep. Thoughts came, but they didn't stay. They floated in like clouds, paused for a heartbeat, and moved on. I didn't follow. I only breathed and watched and rested. And the sky between the branches, watched with me, listened with me, turned with me. And in that gentle turning, I found the space to let go, to breathe, to simply be. As I sat beneath the tree, breathing in the slow rhythm of the night, my thoughts began to soften, loosening like knots untying themselves one by one. I wasn't trying to shape them or hold them steady. I simply let them rise, the way a breeze lifts a leaf, the way sleep begins, slowly, gently, without asking permission. In the quiet of my mind, I began to imagine small lanterns, each one glowing softly in the dark. They drifted upward, weightless and warm, as if carried by some invisible wind that knew the way. Each lantern a thought, a memory, a passing feeling, small, flickering shapes lit from within. A scent found me slowly. It rose like a tide from the ground, soft and steady, folding into the air with every shift of the breeze. Lavender, gentle and familiar, like something half remembered from a warm afternoon long ago, or maybe from a dream that never really ended. It didn't arrive all at once. It unfolded, note by note, like music from a faraway room. I didn't move. I didn't need to. The scent drifted over me like a veil of calm, wrapping around my body, winding into the folds of my breath. I breathed it in without thinking, and when I did, the world grew even quieter, as if the night itself had sighed and settled deeper into the earth. Lavender, the color of twilight pressed into petals. Lavender, the smell of slow summers, of still hands, of soft linens drying in the sun. Lavender, like a lullaby turned into light and set loose into the wind. Each breath I took was like falling further into a warm pool. My body softened, floating in its own weight. My limbs drifted away from thought. My spine melted deeper into the ground. I wasn't holding on to anything now, not even my name. Only breath, only this moment, only the lavender. My thoughts grew quiet. Not silent, but feather-light, like leaves released into a slow-moving stream. They didn't rush. They wandered. They twirled gently through the water of my mind, never asking to be followed. I let them pass, one by one. Thought, then space, then another thought, then more space. The spaces grew wider, the thoughts lighter, a rhythm of drifting. I breathed in the lavender again, deeper this time. Felt it press gently into the back of my throat, the hollows of my chest, the soft inner walls of my lungs. It carried something with it, something older than memory, a hush, a comfort, a quiet invitation to let go. And I did. I let go of the day. The edges of it slipped away without protest. The quiet footsteps through the meadow, the gentle press of grass beneath my feet, the rustle of leaves, the way the moonlight had guided me forward. It was all still with me, but not heavy, not sharp. Just soft shadows now, just traces, like patterns left in sand. Another breath, and I began to drift, not in body, but in thought. Not away, but deeper, not to somewhere else, but into the very center of this stillness. I imagined the lavender fields not far from here, long rows beneath the stars, the purple blooms swaying like waves on a dark sea. I imagined bees sleeping curled in the blossoms, the hum of the day silenced at last, and still, the scent remained. A lullaby made of light and wind, a whisper that asked for nothing but breath. And breath I gave it, slowly, softly, again and again. I felt myself begin to float, not in body, but in being. Like a leaf caught in warm air, like mist rising from a quiet pond. My thoughts dissolved into the lavender, and the lavender into me, until I could no longer tell where the scent ended and my breath began. There were no questions here, no stories to finish, no names to remember, just the rhythm of resting, just the drifting, just the scent like a thread through my mind, drawing me gently towards sleep. So if you are here now, if your breath is slow and your body soft, if your thoughts have started to float like mine, then come with me, just for a little while. Just breathe with me, in and out. Let the lavender find you. Let it carry you. Let it hold you gently. In the quiet of the night, there's nowhere to be, nothing to do. Only this, only now, only rest. I don't know when the dream began, if it began at all. It felt more like a gentle turning, as if one thought softly rolled into another, until I was no longer lying in a field of lavender, but somewhere else entirely. Somewhere quieter still, somewhere deeper. I was resting inside a seashell, a giant, pale spiral of smooth stone and light, cradling me like a secret whispered by the sea. Its walls curled high above me, smooth and faintly glowing, like moonlight caught in bone. I couldn't see the ocean, but I could feel it. Every now and then, a distant wave would rise and fall, and its rhythm would echo through the shell, humming softly through the air, through the floor, through my chest. It was the ocean breathing, slow, deep, and endless, in and out, a long exhale across the shore, then stillness, then the next breath. Each wave was like the slow opening of a dream, then the tender closing of it again. The world inside the shell had no edges. The sound of the sea came not through my ears, but through my skin, my bones, the weightless hush of my thoughts. Everything was softened here. Everything slowed. The air was warm and salted, scented faintly with sun-dried stone and kelp far below. I imagined tiny motes of sea mist dancing in the light, floating just above me. I didn't try to reach them. I simply let them drift, like my breath, like my thoughts. The inside of the shell curved around me like a cradle, smooth and gently cupped. I rested there as if I had always belonged, my back molded to the contours of ancient coral, my head pillowed on the cool spiral floor. The surface beneath me wasn't hard. It was soft in a way that stone sometimes becomes when it's been shaped for thousands of years by water and wind. Not sharp, not cold, only calm. Outside, the waves continued their slow rhythm, in and out, the ocean dreaming itself. I imagined I was sleeping beneath miles of soft blue water, with whales gliding silently in the distance, and fish slipping like silk through shadows. Above, the surface shimmered. Below, the depths stretched on forever, quiet, gentle, vast. I was held in the hollow between. The shell became my world, Its soft curves, its rounded silence, the breath of the sea. It was like being inside the chest of the earth itself, listening to its heartbeat, rising and falling with its breath. And still I lay there, breathing, drifting, dreaming. I felt no need to move, no urge to open my eyes. All that mattered was the rhythm, wave and breath, tide and thought, in perfect sync. There was a lullaby in the water too, not sung, but felt. A kind of low music made by time and patience. The kind of song only the sea can sing. My breath followed it, in slow, out slower, a current within me, a tide of stillness. I thought for a moment of seashells left on warm sand, how they hold the sound of the ocean inside them, even after they've been carried far from shore. I wondered if, just maybe, this shell, this place I now rested in, had carried the sea inside it for so long that it had become the sea itself. Not a relic, not a memory, but the echo of something eternal, and I, resting in its curve, became a part of that echo. The world beyond the shell faded, the night, the field, even the stars. All that remained was this slow, spiraling hush, this cradle of ocean breath, this sense of being held and rocked and slowly stilled. I felt my body become lighter with each breath, as if the salt of the sea was gently drawing the last remnants of thought from me. Not to erase them, but to soften them, to fold them into the rhythm of sleep. So I let go of sound, of time, of memory, and floated perfectly still in the spiral of the shell, drifting deeper, drifting down, where the waves are breath and the silence is safe, and all things are slow, and all things are soft, and all things rest. There was a stillness within me now that I hadn't known before. Not just quiet, but something deeper, slower. It was as though my thoughts had curled up and gone to sleep, leaving behind only the gentle sensation of being. No questions, no names, just breath and peace. I don't remember when I noticed the water. Perhaps it had always been there, waiting just beyond the curve of the seashell dream. Or perhaps I had drifted toward it without knowing, drawn not by footsteps, but by silence itself. Either way, I found myself standing beside a pool of still water, its surface smooth as glass, undisturbed by even the faintest wind. I looked into it, and for a moment, I did not see my face. I saw only the sky, soft and dark, scattered with stars that shimmered like quiet thoughts, resting on the surface of the world. The pool held everything. It held the hush of the earth, the sleep of the trees, the dreaming of the moon, and somehow it held me too. I knelt beside it, slowly, gently, as if not to disturb the hush between us. The grass beneath my knees was damp with dew, cool and clean, and the air around me felt as still as breath just before it's released. I leaned closer, and now I did see my reflection, dim and soft, barely there, like a memory, like mist, and as I watched it rippled, not from wind, not from movement, but from something softer still, the subtle pulse of life itself. A single breath stirred the surface, and my image disappeared, then slowly returned. I watched it happen again and again. A breath, a ripple, a soft return. Over and over. And I thought, how like my mind, this pool. How like my thoughts. Calm when left alone, stirred when touched, then always settling back into stillness if given time. I had never noticed how gently a thought could disappear if I did not chase it. If I simply let it ripple once and then fade. I closed my eyes and breathed, and when I opened them, the pool looked deeper. Now it felt less like water and more like a doorway, a quiet threshold between waking and dream. I felt as though I could fall inward, not with my body, but with my mind. And so I did. I leaned closer until the image of myself softened completely into the surface. Just light and shadow now, just a gentle shape. I imagined stepping into it, letting go of weight, of form, of story, not to be lost, only to rest. And in the water, I began to see things, not visions exactly, but impressions. A garden where petals fall like snow, a path lit by moonlight, a field that breathed lavender into the air, a shell that echoed with ancient tides, and in each image, a sense of stillness, of return. Each reflection drifted by slowly, like a lantern on a quiet stream. I didn't reach for them. I simply let them pass. Their glow was soft and fleeting, and as they disappeared, I felt no sadness, only the hush of their leaving, like a lullaby ending in silence. One by one, the reflections faded, until the water held nothing but sky again, and I held nothing but breath. Still, slow, weightless. I dipped my fingertips into the pool, just barely, and watched as the ripples moved outward, circles of soft motion widening into stillness once more. There was something sacred about that motion, something deeply familiar, like the rhythm of thought dissolving into quiet, like the drift between waking and sleep. I felt it in my breath, in my chest, in the space behind my eyes. The pool was not just water. It was the mind made quiet. It was the body made still. And the reflections were only ever echoes of what I'd already let go. I leaned back onto the soft grass behind me, listening now not to the water, but to the silence that held it. The kind of silence that feels full instead of empty. The kind of silence that holds everything and asks for nothing in return. Overhead, the sky curved like a great shell of night, and I imagined the stars were small reflections too, tiny lanterns drifting across the endless pool of sky. Not to guide me, but to show me how gently light can float, how softly it can fade. My body felt so far away now. Not gone, just resting, perfectly still, as if it too were floating on water. Thoughts moved like mist, breath moved like tide, and somewhere beyond the star, the ground beneath me was warm now, cradling me like a lullaby made of earth and time. I could feel its quiet presence through the soft grass and layers of soil, a gentle, steady rhythm, as if the earth itself were breathing beneath me. Not fast, not loud, but slow and deep, a breath that had been going on for thousands of years and would go on long after mine faded into sleep. In and out, in and out. I let my own breath match it. I didn't try. There was no need to try. It just happened. As if my body remembered how to breathe like the land, how to rest the way stones rest, how to listen the way trees do when the wind is far away. Each inhale was a falling inward, each exhale a letting go. And with every breath, the silence deepened. Not the kind of silence that feels empty, but the kind that wraps around you like a soft blanket. The silence full of presence, full of breath, full of earth. I began to imagine the soil beneath me, not as something separate from me, but as something alive, something ancient, something endlessly kind. I imagined roots below, winding slowly, softly through the darkness, not searching, not reaching, just being. I imagined the hum of the ground. The earth breathed. I breathed together. In and out. In and out. I could feel it in my ribs, in my chest, in the soft cradle of my belly. My breath was not mine anymore. It belonged to the rhythm beneath me, to the air around me, to the hush that filled the spaces between stars. And with each cycle, I softened. A little more, a little more. The grass beneath my fingers was cool with dew, and I traced it absently, as one might trail fingers across a quiet stream. I wasn't thinking, I wasn't planning. I was simply here, in this moment, in this breath, resting in the body the earth had always been holding for me. And above me, the sky pulsed faintly with distant light, stars breathing too, each one a slow blink of dream. They did not hurry. They did not call out. They only shimmered, gently, 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 as if they too had learned the rhythm of this place. There was no beginning to this stillness, and no end. Only breath, only presence, only now. And so I stayed. I stayed in the quiet. I stayed in the breath. I stayed in the warmth of the ground that welcomed me. Over and over again, I let go of the shape of the day, of the echoes of thought, of the names of things. And what remained was so simple, so tender, just the pulse of air moving in and out, and the feeling of being held by something older than memory. In and out, into the music passed, that which had passed in my mind, not from forgetting but from peace, from knowing there was nothing left to say, nothing left to carry. The earth had taken it all in its arms and was rocking it gently to sleep. I listened to the rhythm, the ancient, slow rhythm of breathing with the earth. Between me and sky, between me and breath, all faded now. My eyes, so gently heavy, began to close, not all at once, but like dusk falling over the land. A slow dimming, a quieting of vision. I let them fall shut, like petals folding inward at the end of a long, sunlit day. And even in that darkness, something soft remained, a glow, quiet and distant, like starlight beneath my eyelids. I didn't need to see them to know the stars were still there. I could feel them, little pulses of light, tucked gently behind the dark, like echoes of the sky drawn inward. Their glow shimmered just beneath the surface of rest, not sharp or blinding, but diffused, like moonlight through silk, like dreams waiting patiently in the folds of quiet. I breathed in, I breathed out, and with each breath, the inner sky expanded, no longer around me, now within me. It was not made of walls or shapes or names, just soft currents, slow and star-filled. It felt as if my thoughts had turned into lanterns again, but this time they were drifting gently through the vastness inside, floating freely, not trying to be anything, just glowing softly, then fading away like sparks in still water. There was nothing to do now, nowhere to go, just this slow, luminous quiet blooming behind closed eyes. I felt the hush of it, not empty, but full of presence, the kind of quiet that hums, barely, like distant wind across the hills. The kind of quiet that feels like a lullaby, hummed not to the ears, but to the bones. Inside, I imagined soft fields with no edges, meadows lit by nothing but starlight, oceans without tide, skies that held no clouds, only stillness and space and the invitation to drift. Everything was slow here, timeless. Thoughts didn't come in lines anymore. They came in waves, or feathers, or echoes, and I let them pass without holding. One by one, the last sparks of the day dimmed in my body. The tightness in my jaw softened. The small weight behind my eyes dissolved. My shoulders sank just a little deeper into the bed of grass beneath me, as if the earth had taken my weariness into itself and replaced it with warmth. A world inside was no longer separate from the world around, above and below, within and without, all part of the same still breath. And though my eyes were closed, I saw clearly, not with vision, but with rest. I saw the glow of stars flickering just behind the quiet of my thoughts, and each shimmer seemed to speak in a language older than words. You are safe. You are home. You may let go now. And so I did. Not all at once, gently, slowly, like fog lifting, like leaves drifting to the ground. The air around me felt softer than before, as if it had grown used to my presence, as if it too was ready to sleep. And my breath, slower now, deeper, moved in rhythm with the dark, a steady tide. In, out, in, out. Each breath a star, each breath a step deeper into the dream-lit field of quiet. And in that place, the place behind the eyes, behind the name, behind the shape of thought, I rested, I floated, I faded softly into warmth and dark and light. The outer world was still there, the grass, the moon, the hush of the grove, but it had become part of me now, folded gently into the slow rhythm of being. I was no longer walking. I was no longer waiting. I was simply here, cradled in the hush between heartbeats, held in the wide hands of sleep, carried softly beneath the starlit sky I now carried inside me. And as the last echoes of the waking world dimmed, I drifted fully into that quiet illumination, not to vanish, but to dream, to rest, to breathe in the stars and let them settle gently beneath my eyelids. The night had drawn itself around me like a deep sigh, and I lay still, feeling the world settle into place. It was as though the earth itself had gathered soft blankets and tucked them gently around my resting body, not of fabric or thread, but of meadow and moon. The grass beneath me cradled every curve, a cushion woven from centuries of stillness. I could feel its memory, sunlit days, quiet rains, seeds once scattered, now grown and resting too. It was warm, not with heat, but with comfort, the way a low fire glows long after flames have dimmed, the way a lullaby lingers after the last note has fallen. And above me, the sky lowered its calm light, a silver hush descending like the gentlest sheet. Moonlight spilled across my chest like water poured from a calm hand, then stretched outward, wrapping the air around me in a glow that neither flickered nor faded. It didn't light the world so much as it softened it, like a veil laid over tired eyes. The breeze, when it came, was like fingers pulling the covers up to my chin, a soft sweep, a caring hush. It moved slowly, reverently, as if it, too, knew that this was a time for rest, and it did not wish to disturb. It circled my limbs in cool spirals and folded itself against the hollows of my body like an old quilt found at the foot of a bed. And I thought, how tender the world becomes when you let it hold you. How kind the night is when you no longer ask anything of it. How deeply the earth knows how to soothe. Somewhere between waking and dreaming, I imagined hands made of light, or maybe leaves or mist. I couldn't say. And they moved with care across my brow, brushing away the dust of the day. I imagined the stars watching with a quiet sort of love, whispering lullabies I could not hear, only feel. Even the darkness, which once might have seemed like an unknown, now felt like a soft woolen shawl wrapped across my shoulders. Its weight was not heavy, but grounding, not silence, but presence. I sank deeper into the field, into the hush, into the cradle of breath and being. There was no longer a need to hold myself up. The earth did that for me. No longer a need to guard my thoughts. The moon watched over them gently. I let my arms grow still, palms open to the sky, as if to say, I trust you now. And I did. I trusted the grass to hold me. I trusted the breeze to soothe me. I trusted the night to keep me warm. In that moment, I felt smaller than the world, but not lost in it, known by it. Not separate, but safe inside its quiet rhythm. I could feel the weight of my body less and less, not from numbness, but from belonging. As if I had become part of the field itself, a blossom folded into soft ground, a breath folded into the wind. Sleep had not arrived fully, not yet, but it hovered close, waiting for the last thoughts to gently dim, like lanterns flickering low at the end of a long evening. And I welcomed it. I welcomed it the way one welcomes a familiar comfort, a favorite blanket pulled from an old cedar chest, carrying the scent of memory and quiet. I imagined the air above me tucking in the last corners. I imagined the grass beneath me rising just enough to catch my breath. I imagined the moon pulling its light over me, like a lullaby woven from silver thread. I imagined being held, and I was held not by hands, but by hush. Not by voices, but by the still hum of nighttime things. Leaves whispering, soil settling, the low beat of the heart as it slows, calms, lets go. Warmth wrapped me gently, not heat, but nearness. The kind of warmth that says, you are here, you are safe, you may rest now. And so I did, wrapped in blankets that no seamstress had stitched, but which the night itself had prepared. Blankets made not of cloth, but of meadow and moon, breath and sky, memory and dream. And I thought, just before thought disappeared, how kind it is to be held by something that asks for nothing in return. How lovely to surrender to something softer than sleep. The night, now fully woven around me, began to hum, not loudly, not insistently, but like a lullaby already half remembered. A sound without edges, without beginning or end. just there, surrounding me, holding me. I could hear the crickets first, tiny voices carried on the air like the faintest bells, not sharp, not sudden, but rhythmic, like distant singers humming the same low note again and again, never tired, never hurried. Their song stitched the silence together, filling in the gaps so gently that I almost didn't notice it was a song at all. It was just comfort, familiar, ancient. Somewhere close, even the grass had a sound if I listened with enough stillness. A brushing, a swaying, a hush as it leaned against itself and leaned against me. It was like listening to softness itself, to the sound of being held without a word. And beneath all that, steady and calm, was the sound of my own heart, a drum, faint and slow, not marching, not calling, not beating with any urgency, just sounding, just being, a quiet keeper of time. I let it count the seconds for me. I let it anchor me, softly, to this bed of earth. Each beat a step deeper into sleep. Each beat a door that gently closed behind me. There were no thoughts, not really, only fragments now, like petals drifting through water. A shape here, a flicker there. They didn't need answers. They weren't asking anything of me, just floating, slowly, gently. Words, when they came, arrived one at a time, not to be spoken, only to be felt. Soft, like moss, like breath, like silk, falling through quiet air. There was nothing I needed to do, nowhere I needed to go, nothing I had to hold on to. Everything was already here. Everything had already become rest. The stars above, I no longer needed to see them. I could feel them through closed lids. Their glow like soft notes strung across the dark. A quiet constellation of calm. Their light didn't shine down. It poured in, slow and silver, filling my thoughts with hush. And the night sang, not with a voice I could name, but with every sound around me, every leaf brushing against another, every cricket's note, every breath of wind. It sang me slowly into stillness. Not lullabies made of melody, but of texture, of rhythm, of space. The song of no clocks ticking, the song of no questions waiting, the song of everything quieting at once. And I drifted, not like falling. There was no drop, no descent, only the feeling of being carried, of being gently floated towards something that had no edges, no urgency, like mist moving over water, like sleep wrapping its arms around me with the patience of midnight. I felt my limbs soften, my breath stretch longer. Thoughts slowed until they barely made sound. The world narrowed, not from darkness, but from peace. And still the night sang, a song for me and for no one, a psalm for everyone and for always. Soft pulses, soft wind, soft grass, soft everything. And I drifted, and I drifted, and I drifted. I became softer than thought, quieter than breath. There was no need now to remember who I was, or where I had come from. The meadow, the moonlight, the hush of the trees, all of it folded itself around me until the lines blurred, and I began to dissolve into the dream I had wandered toward all along. No longer a body resting on grass. I was the grass, swaying in a wind that knew my name without needing to say it. I was the hush between crickets, the pause between stars, the weightless moment between night's inhale and exhale. My skin no longer held me in. I seeped outward like mist through the hollow air, curling gently around flower stems and pooling beneath leaves. My heartbeat faded into the rhythm of everything else. The edges of me softened like chalk melting into rain, and in that gentle unraveling, I found the lullaby of becoming stillness, becoming breath, becoming dream. I was a slow tide washing over a quiet shore. I was a feather adrift on twilight. I was a sigh that never ended. In this dream, there were no doors, no walls, no weight to carry. Only lightness, only warmth. I moved without walking, floated without flying, felt without thinking. Every image came like a hush behind my eyes. A petal opening in slow motion, a lantern rising through indigo air, a pool of moonlight that had no surface. I drifted through them without needing to understand. Dreams didn't need to make sense. They only needed to be felt, and I felt them like soft music in my chest. There was a garden without end, a sky that folded over itself like fabric, a breeze made of memory. Each moment passed like a cloud, full of shape and then gone. Each thought dissolved before it became a sentence. Each feeling lasted just long enough to smile at. And I smiled, in the way that dreams smile, without lips, without effort. Just a quiet joy spreading outward like warmth from a morning sun that had not yet risen. Time no longer ticked forward here. It pooled, it rested, it dreamed with me. I no longer knew where I ended and the dream began. I no longer needed to. I was no longer remembering the night. I was the night. I was the soft dark that covered the earth. I was the hum that echoed beneath sleeping roots. I was the rhythm of rest. And still the lullaby continued, not sung by lips, but by silence itself. It said, "You are safe. You are still. You are enough. Rest." And so I did. No need to return. No need to rise. Only to float gently, deeper and deeper into the folds of quiet. And I drifted, until even drifting became dreaming, and dreaming became being, and being became sleep. And now, there is nothing but silence. No more images to hold. No more stories to tell. Only the hush that lives beneath all sound. Deep, velvet stillness wrapped around the edges of being. I do not know if I am still awake, or if I have drifted entirely. It makes no difference now. Thought has softened into mist, and mist into silence, and silence into sleep. The meadow holds me without weight. The earth beneath me breathes in rhythm with my bones. Even the stars have quieted. Each breath comes like a whisper. Each heartbeat slower than the last. A gentle drum fading into the distance. I no longer think in words. Only warmth. Only calm. Only the soft feeling of being held in the arms of the night. Time has folded in on itself. Minutes no longer matter. There is only this moment, and this one, and this. Soft, still, safe. The breeze is only a murmur now, if it moves at all. The flowers rest around me like drowsy companions. Even the trees seem to slumber, their leaves no longer whispering, but simply being. And I am part of it all, not separate, not watching, just gently within it, as if the night has taken me in completely. My body is so light, I do not feel it. My mind so quiet, it is like a smooth lake with no ripples. No questions, no remembering, no need. Only silence. Not empty, not cold, but full, like a lullaby that has become the air itself. If I speak now, the words are not mine, but the dreams, and even those are few, and further apart, like stones across a stream that disappears into mist. One breath, then another, each one deeper, slower, softer, as if I am breathing through the earth itself, or not breathing at all, just resting in the pause between inhale and exhale. I feel no urgency, no pull, no need to move. Even my thoughts sleep beside me, curled up gently like petals after dusk. There is nothing more to say, nothing more to become. I am. I rest. I fade, like a candle that has burned to the end, its light flickering once, then not, but not lost, only absorbed by the darkness that is not dark at all, but tender, quiet, eternal. And so, only the sound of your breath now, only the soft hum of stillness.